Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday night, we are back in action. You know it's going to be a good podcast. Right when we were starting, I said, "Here we go," and all Galia and I heard was, and like a can got opened in the background in the Bickler's location. So it should be a good one. I'm your host, back in action as always over here in Chicago, where we were almost springy and then there were flurries today. I mean, like things flying around. I was like, oh, this is going to kill my allergies. Here we go. But nope, it wasn't pollen. It was actually snow, for God's sake. So I don't know what the hell is going on there. But hopefully spring is around the corner. It's April, for God's sakes. It should be right here. Bickler's with us. Bickler, what's happening? The can is open. We're ready to open a can of whoop ass.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. We had 80s the last 2 days,
Loving
3 days. 80s and windy today. So it looks like we're skipping spring and going straight into summer.
That's more like Chicago, like than anything else. But coming to us from an undisclosed location over here, kidnapped is Galley. What's happening?
Yeah, basically, it's a little bit like the witness protection program, but Orlando style. So 90 degrees, muggy and rainy, but it was nice to actually be by the pool today and down here in Florida for a few days. Little warm weather retreat, get away from the Northeast. I will say when I got in the parking lot at the airport this morning at 3:45 in the morning, and it was raining. I was like, oh man. And then I looked out the window and it was actually sleet. And I was like, oh, there's never been a moment to go to Florida. Like Florida, unlike the rest of us, was absolutely New England apropos. So
Yeah, that's usually a good time. So, I mean, we like, Angie and I usually try to get away from here like January, February. The only thing that sucks is when you come back. And then when you go from like 60s, 70s, 80s, wherever you're coming from, down to like 10 or something like that when you land at the airport. But have fun over there. Not too much fun, I guess. But I know what's fun. Here we go. I missed this, man. What? It's been like 2 weeks or something like that. I was gonna put it on Spotify and just listen to it there, but here we go. Trivia. Okay. This is like a tricky question, so I'm gonna take my time asking it because I don't want follow-up questions from Bickler over here. Okay, here we go. Which former Liverpool player grew up less than 3 miles from Anfield, and they were an Everton supporter? They actually could not stand Ian Rush, but then scored 6 goals in their first 2 games, and Rush was actually the captain. Bickler. Look at Bickler jamming, man. That's what I'm talking about, Bickler.
I was laughing because I was thinking of who I thought it was, and then you said 6 goals scored, and it definitely was not him.
were they own goals?
Gerard. So let's get
Were
that out
any of them own goals?
What was that?
I was kidding. I said, were any of them own goals?
yeah, 5 of them were. Oh my! I'm back in the game. Look, I have no idea. I literally don't even have a guess on this one.
What do you have there, Gally?
I genuinely, I'm not really sure.
Here's a
6
tip.
goals.
5 of those 6 he scored in one game, which was the second game. It was a League Cup game, the first game. Then he played a game where he scored 5 goals.
I mean, Brian Shelton threw Fowler in the chat. I don't know that he scored 5 goals in a match, but I mean, I'm trying to think of an attacking player who would have started his career around the time that Ian Rush ended his. So I'll say Robbie Fowler. I guess when you don't have an answer, say God.
Yeah, just go with yes. Everybody's got it in the comments. Everybody except Matush was always going for Steven Gerrard, but yes, it was Robbie Fowler. And where does he rank in the scoring lists?
Is he 5th all time?
Bickler, throw a guess in there.
I was gonna say 3rd, but I don't know if I don't know.
He went the wrong way. He's actually 7th, 183 goals, 3 behind Gerrard.
Oh, Gerrard being.
But yeah, and then he's turning 50 over in 2 days over here. So Shelton is going with the fifth. Yeah, he's actually like seventh overall in the scoring list. And like, yeah, like I said, like three behind Gerard. And yeah, the first game was a League Cup second round at Fulham. He scored one over there. And then 2 weeks later, he scored 5 goals in a home match over here. So that's how it started. Aren't you guys glad Trivia's back? By the way, bad news. BJ says rain is coming, Galley. So heads up in Florida.
Florida, isn't rain always coming? I mean, 3:45 comes every day.
Yeah, it's like weird over there. Like it runs for like it's like Ryan's for like 30 seconds and then back to regular scheduled programming. So let's get to a lot to get to. Obviously, there were 2 games since the last Monday night podcast. I'm going to focus more on Fulham. Obviously, the Thursday gang already talked a lot about like the Everton game and stuff like that. And I think a Derby game, it's harder to evaluate and stuff. But let's get to the Fulham game, which obviously was a loss. Bickler, I want to ask you a lot of the stuff that I see online, which is a really easy cop out for me. Anytime we don't play well, it's always like people are tired. But there's a lot of like the team is tired talk. But to me, when I watched that game, and I know it came 3-4 days after the Derby, but so did for Fulham over there. When I watched the game, I did not see like tired legs, which went to tired minds making mistakes. To me, it was more like the team looked like they ordered the title trophy from like Amazon or DoorDash or something like that, and they were just waiting for it to come in. So it looked like lazy minds affecting lazy legs, and they were making the mistakes. And it wasn't necessarily. I mean, are you going with that? This team is tired syndrome, or what was the reason behind the performance?
I mean, I think if I'm going with physical fatigue, like we don't see the second half we saw, right? Like I think that team continues to fade down the stretch there, and things continue to sort of devolve throughout that match. But when 3 of your back 4 that are locked in starting 11 players make critical errors, like compounded on top of each other, and just, yeah, I mean, ironically, the only one that doesn't make the critical error to lead to a goal is the midfielder you're playing as a right back. So, like, I think when I look at that first half, it did look like a team that just kind of came out on autopilot, which, I mean, to be fair, I think this is we talk about the fixture congestion and the physical impact it has, but I do think there is some sort of there is some sort of mental fatigue that happens when you're in the course of a season. You watch the number 2 team behind you just drop points in a game they shouldn't drop points in. You're going into this game. Do you take the foot off the gas just a little bit? I think it's pretty easy to do it, right?
I mean, here's the thing, and I really feel, Gally, that if Arsenal gets the 3 points out of the Everton away game, we see a totally different team and a totally different attitude. Because even when I woke up to that score Saturday morning, I was like, so tomorrow's game is like, whatever now kind of a deal. Like, it wasn't as much pressure on the game. I can afford to say that as I'm looking at the score laying in bed, but the team can't. I guess the most disappointing part is I know what Pickler is saying. There's probably a mental fatigue, but I guess I was more disappointed that those came from, if it's from Gravenberg or Szoboszlai or something like that, I think I would be a bit more understanding as opposed to guys like Robertson and Van Dijk and stuff, who you expect to be the ones to say, hey, we didn't win it yet. We got to go all the way and kind of like shore up everybody else. But the mistake kind of came from the guys that you expect to like lead in that situation.
Yeah, I guess that part's frustrating to me. The one thing I'll say is we've seen less than stellar play for going on 2 to 3 weeks. Like this wasn't a blip. Like we didn't play great against Everton. I mean, in neither of the ties with PSG, though I thought we were the better side in the second match, the game that we lost. I thought we were better than the one we won, like classic fashion night. I mean, we haven't played great. The exit even from the cup matches, like there's been a lot. It does feel like this team has been kind of inching along. So I don't know if I totally subscribe to the fact that if Arsenal gets all 3 points, I think this side struggles when they're not scoring goals. And I don't think we've been scoring from open play and free flow really in a while. And I think it adds pressure. And, albeit for me to bring up the $1 million Irishman in the room, but it's always funny when these like unnerving, nerve-wracking moments seem to happen. They seem to happen more often when Allison's not in net behind them. And I think sometimes that's partially because as much as we build up what the player does, he's still a backup. And I think at the end of the day, the players know that. Van Dijk just had a horror of a match. I could argue we've seen this from Robertson a handful of times this year. And this was just one more indication that on any one day, he can be man of the match one week, and then he can look like a guy who maybe isn't still a top side left back at a big club in the world. Like he's just getting older. And I think that's what we saw more than anything by Andy Robertson. I think his athletic ability was called into question because he was getting taken to the cleaners. And then I think mentally, he just had a moment of madness and, literally decided to cross the ball across his own 18-yard box for no reason. And I just think when you make mistakes like that at this level, you can't overcome them. And I think we too often are.
Errors on that one. Like he passes the ball, then he brings it down with a header, and then he deflects it. I was like, dude, just take it and throw it in the goal if you want. I felt bad for him because it's one of those like been there, done that. Unfortunately, like God damn it, like everything is going wrong, kind of a deal. But honestly, Van Dijk did not have a great game against Everton too. Beto kind of like had the better of him in a couple of situations. I don't know. I mean, do you agree with that, Pickler? Do you think? I mean, I personally think I know what Galley's saying, and I do agree that we've been kind of like Brian says in the comments, we've been kind of crawling since February. It's not like like crisp performances, but I do still put it on the defense and the mindset because what is the slot special? 2-0, and we could have gotten the 2-0 when we woke up, but we kind of like because of this lack of concentration or whatever it is. We are letting in way too many goals. By the way, Innocent Bassey is buying a whole new team over there, so congratulations. That's
gonna be a busy summer.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy summer.
I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that someone can make sure that the kit man knows that we are renaming McAllister to Mackie Allister to start next season.
There's a lot of people in there.
Because that Macker Lister is like that is something right outside of like a suburb of Boston, because that's how they would pronounce McAllister's name.
What do you think, Bickler, in terms of like how the Saturday game of Arsenal affected the Sunday game?
I don't know, man. I think there's merit to both, right? I definitely think that the side collectively has struggled. The last 2.5, 3 months now. Like, I think that's legitimate, and I don't know that has anything to do, like that specifically doesn't have to do necessarily with the Arsenal result. I do think though, like I do think
it is. Like, why is this team struggling now?
Well, I mean, because we play the same like starting six essentially every single match, like. The back four kind of writes itself, and there's not a lot of rotation there. That midfield has been ridden all season. I do think there's some legitimacy to say the legs have gone on the side, but I think in this particular match, I think it's tough to say that considering the fact that we are coming off an extended break. Like, I know that we had a physical Everton side, right? But this is a side that's been back and rested enough to the point where and I think it's evidenced by that second half performance. I mean, I think you saw a different level of execution, which leads me to believe that you just came out and you didn't have enough focus when you came out.
And I think he kind of poo-pooed that himself, Gally. Slots and the press conference, he did say, no, it wasn't about being tired and stuff like that. And we are kind of getting to see how because we haven't lost a lot of games under him, we're slowly learning how he responds and what he says after we lose and stuff like that. Is that him kind of protecting the team? Because he kind of is making it sound more like we just had a really shit 20 minutes there, which we did. And then we kind of that cost us the game kind of deal. And he's not seeing it as what we're talking about. Like it's been going on for a month or two. Is that him doesn't want to put that out in the universe? Or there's some merit to what he's saying. A couple of brain farts basically put Fulham back in the game.
Well, I think there were some brain farts that put Fulham back into the game. I think the coach can do the coach speak and get away with that. I think what it comes down to in the biggest light is team doesn't score goals. Team doesn't score goals from open play. They've gotten 3 goals from center forwards since December 15th. 3 goals from center forwards. That's I find it hard to figure out ways that you're winning in this league. We know that we don't get a lot of goals. We've gotten a little bit of chipped in goals. McAllister had a beautiful goal in the last match, but we don't get a ton of goals from the midfield. Whether love him or hate him, Trent does offer a creative force from the right back. And like that felt like the type of game where you wanted Trent, especially in the second half when you were trying to create things. And we kind of had the ball on the front foot. We got so much better when Bradley comes in. I do think that a lot of this comes down to the fact that players are tired. I do think they are. And I think they are a little bit abreast of ideas. And we've said this before, and we said this under Klopp. It's not a big squad. It's a very good squad. It's not a deep squad. Manager clearly doesn't trust some of the rotational pieces that we trust because we all clamor in Discord and online, and you hear for the shouts for Harvey Elliott and play Chiesa and play this guy. Some even calling for Darwin. I didn't think Gakpo was very good at all. I think the match changed when Diaz and Bradley came on. That was clear and evident as everybody saw. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. But I don't think we can get past the $1 million thing in the room. And, while we're arguing how much is too much for a 32 to 33-year-old, let's call it what it is, formidable striker that your whole offense runs through. I think there has to be questions about, have we not seen this movie before of Mo Salah basically getting really, really tired and looking like he ages 2 years in almost every single season that heads into February, March. And I don't know that you can look at what we've seen over the last 3 seasons. And I think his goals and assist involvement has decreased like 80% from March 1st on over the last 3 years. And that seems like a trend that is going in the wrong direction. And I think the manager really has to think about the next iteration of this side and diversifying how reliant it is on the prolific right wing. Because I don't think you can go into next season assuming you're going to do this again if you are lucky enough to get him re-signed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with Gakpo, I think that's the thing I've always said with Gakpo. When Gakpo is bad, Gakpo is bad. Like, you don't even know he's there. When Diaz is bad and he's doing his, usual, like, how did I end up over here? Suddenly he's on the right wing kind of dribbles. At least he's putting in the effort, winning balls, and he has, like, the energy that he brings. Whereas Gakpo, if he's not in the game, he's just, like, he was pretty much invisible most of the game, it felt like. I mean, with Mo, Bickler, I feel like we saw a different Mo, and I know, like, I mean, what Galley's talking about in terms of like the records is definitely accurate, but I just felt like in the first half, especially, I know everybody jumped the gun when we saw Curtis Jones after one game. He was selling the Trent replacement, but he was literally on like Mo's lap the entire time the first half. It's like, dude, like you're not helping anybody. You're actually closing Mo down over here. The moment Bradley came in the game, and I agree with like, what Galley's saying, like Bradley and Diaz kind of gets the left side going, which takes a little bit pressure off of the right side. And then you have Bradley actually making proper runs and giving Mo space. I mean, is Mo just tired, or is just a matter of when people around him seem to be in poor form, he's going to look in poor form as well?
I don't think it's that. I mean, I think we've seen Mo drag this side across the line in a lot of matches, like when the rest of the team's been poor behind him. I do think there's some validity to the late season fade with him. I mean, it does seem to be a reoccurring trend with him. He goes out over the new year, he rips off 9 goals in 8 matches, and then last time he scores is March 8th versus Southampton. I mean, it's just, we do see this just about every year with that. I heard the argument, it's up to us to get him the ball. We're not consistently getting him the ball. Well, it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think it's his job too to come back and put himself in play. And sometimes I think that Mo tends to isolate himself and try to get the cheap ball over the top in certain areas instead of coming back and like letting it run through him. So, I mean, I think part of this is just physical fatigue when you've got an aging guy that you're putting all your eggs in that basket. I think there is some legitimacy to like the right back thing. Although I'm not going to go down on Curtis Jones, a guy who's not a fullback on his positioning, because I don't think
he was. Sorry, he was the best defender on the day.
Right, he was the one that didn't indirectly score on us. And I think honestly across 2 matches, I think he's done admirably. And I don't think I don't want to see us do this thing where he could. I mean, he might work as a fullback. Like, let's not do that, right? So I do think there's some legitimacy to the pieces around him. But I do think at some point Mo has to take some onus on this and responsibility and start playing himself in the matches when he needs to. I'm with Gally. I think that you got to have some sort of a contingency plan here. I think going into next year with all your eggs in that basket, if you're lucky enough to resign him, is fool's gold. I think it's only a matter of time.
He just can't play 90 minutes every day. He can't play 90 minutes every match
and have all you change. But you can't change that now when you're kind of like dealing with the contract.
And I don't want to be one of those people who's bagging on him. I don't think he's having a bad year. I'm not saying he's done. I'm not saying we shouldn't re-sign him. But I've seen people say like signing Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth would be a luxury signing because we have Mo Salah and we have Diaz and we have Gakpo, and you don't need a player like that. And I think to myself, I think you need a player like that because the manager has kind of proven you don't believe that Chiesa is a viable backup for him or he'd be getting 20 minutes a match. Like, I think when you watch, Jota was absolutely abhorrent in that match. I thought he was abysmal in the first half. I genuinely thought I was Matouche watching the match because every time someone else would do something wrong, I'd find a way to blame Jota for it because he just wasn't even there or even working. Like, he did nothing. And
do you think the manager genuinely doesn't rate Chiesa? Because this is starting to feel dangerously like Klopp territory where like, well, he can't trust the squad because the dip in quality is too big and we just don't have a strong enough bench that for him to rotate. And we just kept saying that and it never fucking happened no matter what. Like, so I
assume that's the case. I assume that's the case with Harvey Elliott too, as much as everybody is saddened to hear that. I don't think there's a role for Harvey's talents in this side.
I mean, here's the thing. We were talking early in the year, and actually, like the Prince brought this up this morning, so I'll ask you guys. I mean, we were talking, if you go back to, I don't know, November, December, right? Because we've seen this movie before where this team really struggles in March and April and stuff like that, and that just kind of like stumbles over. And when we were talking back in November, December, we said, hey, this manager does substitutions a lot earlier. That's when, remember, he was bringing Costas off the bench, Bradley off the bench, taking both the right back, left backs out somewhere around the 60th minute and stuff like that. And we said at the time, I remember, hey, this will pay off in March. This team is not going to get as tired and stuff like that. So I guess the question is, one, maybe that didn't give it those 5 to 10 minutes that we were harping on Klopp for not making substitutions until it was the 80th minute. Maybe those minutes don't add up. It's the starts that matter. And I think this is something that, I'll ask you, Bickler, because Matouche was bringing it up. When the manager was doing that, did he realize, these guys are not as good? Because when these guys come in, we're just not doing it. So I'm going to stick with the guys who know what the hell is going on. Like, did he at that time, as he was giving them minutes and chances, say, no, we're just going to, now I know why Klopp wasn't playing the bench kind of thing.
I mean, it's possible. I have a hard time with that because I feel like there's been so many matches where the game has been put to bed or it's been essentially a dead rubber. We had so many other chances where like we could have gone really, really sort of deep into the bench and like had a full rotation and certain things, and we just haven't seen it. So, I mean, maybe that's possible. I just feel like still, even if you don't trust the quality, there's been a lot of chances where like I think you could have put them in certain spots where safely put them in. But I don't know.
What do you think, Gary?
I think the Gomez injury, like, come back to like the crazy Joe Gomez, the guy that everyone was like, oh, the manager doesn't rate him, doesn't like him. I think things like the Gomez injury, I think Gomez offered the ability for Slot to do some things and make some moves. He had a little faith in one of those reserve players. I do think he kind of went Klopp on this side and realized quickly, like, yeah, I don't like the look of this Greek guy. Like, this Greek guy is not for me. Like, he tried to do it at the beginning. He almost was forced to because Robertson was so bad.
Yeah.
And then I think Robertson had a little purple patch, and that kind of pulled it back in. We started playing less matches. I think the Trent and Gomez / Bradley injuries meant that there was this void in a very key area of the pitch that we build through and we build out of with Mo. And I think that kind of changed things too. And let's be real, he just fell in love with that midfield to the point that he has been overly confident on their ability to play each and every match. Early in the year, I thought he did a really nice job of rotating between Jones, Soboslai, and occasionally finding minutes for McAllister to get a blow here and there. I don't think he ever adjudicated for the fact that Gravenberch hadn't played football at this level in almost 3 years, and he just rolled him out there. And I think we're seeing, we talk about Kwanzaa being 23 years old. Gravenberch is 8 months older than Jarrell Kwanzaa. And yes, he came up through big clubs. Doesn't mean he played a lot of big football. And I think we're seeing it. And I hope, with a year under his belt and then get a little more cover. But I'm with you, Tim. I think he recognized this team's not good enough. These players aren't good enough. And as the money portion of the season came, he said, I'm going to ride these guys to the end because I got a sneaky suspicion he knows that over 2 seasons, 60% of them to 70% of them are going to get turned over.
That's the thing. I mean, when people talk about tire legs and rotation and stuff like that, the names you always hear are, the people who kind of like threw the game under the bus with the errors are not gonna be the ones that everybody picks to be rotated, because nobody is saying, oh, we should have started Costas instead of Robertson or anything like that. So those guys were gonna be the back four anyway. So we go to midfield and you go up top. I think the main issue becomes, Pickler, is the guys you bring off the bench. And I've kind of like asked this before, but there's a positive to have a guy on the bench that is unlike what you have on the pitch, because it does let you change the game when you need to, and we praise the subs. But the downfall of that is you cannot really rotate your starting 11 and your squad the way people want to rest, because he's not giving you what you normally want from that position. And it feels like we just don't have somebody who can do what Szoboszlai does or what Gravenberch does and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true across the midfield. Like I think there's a weird juxtaposition between, like, when I look at the midfielder and we've got like 3 locked in guys that are very like particular in what they do and are locked into playing together, and Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, and McAllister. And then you look at the front 3, and if you take Mo out of there, we essentially spend the majority of our time arguing about those 5 and where and when they should start. Part of that is we talk about all of them have position flexibility, right? Have the ability to play in multiple positions. And I think there's this weird juxtaposition where we're almost locked into midfielders that are so role specific, and five guys that we're arguing over because we don't really have a defined role for them. Like, and it's this weird, like, sort of like, I don't know, juxtaposition between the two, where I feel like we need to have some more of that versatility in the midfield to be able to rotate, and then we need to be a little bit more role specific in our front 3. And I think when we argue about those 5 guys playing where and when they should play, what that's really telling us is that we don't have the guys we need. We don't have a striker. That's what it's telling you.
I think that the one thing I'm taking away from this season, especially 2025, watching this side bomb out of the Champions League, put in that abysmal performance at Wembley against Newcastle, which is still disappointing to me at this point when I think about it. I think what's come down to is the manager says, I can get by with these defenders, and I really love this midfield. I just wish he had gotten me a Zubamendi, got me a 4th, because Curtis Jones, if he's my 5th midfielder, I'm really cooking with gas here. If he's my 3rd and a half, I'm like, come on, this is stretching things a little bit because he's too inconsistent. But he loves Curtis Jones. It's clear every time he talks about him. Yeah. You can tell. And this is, once again, for all the Curtis Jones haters out there, this is 2 really class football tacticians that believe Curtis Jones is like a special type of player because he does a job that no one else wants to do. I think the sneaky, quiet if you ask the manager where his biggest issues are, it might be the area of the pitch that people think Liverpool have the most talent, which is the top. Because yes, they have six guys who can score goals and six guys who can start for their countries and six guys who could probably be a leading candidate at a Premier League club, depending on the level of club. I don't think there's six guys that work well together. As what is evident that Mo Salah would still tell you today he prefers playing with Darwin Nunez. And to me, that lets you know that none of the guys work around the one guy who pencils his name in every time. Because I'm not sure the kid at the car park wants to play with Darwin Nunez at this point.
I mean, the weird thing is, I felt our best was when we had Diaz in the middle and Gakpo on the left. And I think, now that Jota is back, it's almost like, well, there are two left wings. I think we're almost like overthinking it. Just because you have two center forwards and you're reserving that spot doesn't mean that you should, because I don't think either one of them. And I know, Jota just scored the goal against Everton, and that was the winning goal and everything. But overall in play, you can kind of see the drop off we had compared to before. But let me ask you guys. Okay, let's start with Chiesa first, because I know, Bickler, you were talking about it earlier. And I asked this on Discord yesterday, and you were actually one of the ones who answered. I think we are all in agreement that we want to have him get more minutes, right? But when I read sometimes when people say that, I'm like, am I watching a different game? Because I'm not seeing a guy in I just want to see more of him, because let's find out what the hell we have is probably more my approach than anything else at this point. People are talking like, oh, look at the impact he made and stuff like that. I mean, when you're chasing a game and you throw a guy in there, they're going to make an impact. When the other team is already leaning back and stuff like that, they are going to make an impact. When you say Chiesa should get more minutes, I mean, are you seeing something that you are like, yes, we need more of that? Or is it just more of like, we've kind of seen it before, pre-Liverpool days, and that's why we kind of want to see if it's going to work or not? I mean, I look at his Liverpool resume and there have been some good moments and stuff like that, but does he look a whole lot better than Nunez? I mean, not really, because sometimes I feel like he over tries, which kind of is a detriment in return.
I think it's really hard to evaluate, because I think like he's had two starts. I mean, he has played 24 minutes since February 9th. I mean, I don't know how you really evaluate that. I will say what happens with Chiesa is when we are watching him, I think the majority of the fan base is looking through a hopeful lens at a potential solution and are therefore evaluating that performance on that lens, which is essentially the polar opposite of how you would evaluate a Darwin Nunez performance right now, right? Like, I think there's like over optimism and over negativity. And I think those are the two ends that you like, those are the two extreme ends of how you're evaluating a player. For me, I've seen enough things that I'm excited and want to see more. I think the Eindhoven start was really good for him. I thought he looked great in the spades in Newcastle. And I'll tell you when I think he looks really good. I think he looks really, really good. Very similar to how Harvey Elliott looks really, really good. When we're chasing a match and we have four attackers, he looks like outstanding. But I think that's because he lives in that sort of half space in a non-traditional, almost like Bobby way that I like. And so like, I would love to see more of it. I don't know how much of the formation is going to call for that. And maybe that's why we're not seeing him, because he excels in a role that A, isn't in the system, and B, only happens when we're chasing a match. I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. We were talking, probably it was after the PSV match. I know like Victor and I were saying, Gally, that, hey, maybe he'll be the Szoboszlai. Like we don't have another Szoboszlai in the squad, because we talked about it on the podcast. We were like, hey, maybe he is that guy, because he has all the tools. He has the work rate, physicality, and stuff like that. Maybe you don't get from Harvey as much in terms of like physicality. But one difference that I see, like, obviously Harvey, we have a much larger, like work to kind of like evaluate and stuff like that. But what I like about Harvey is he is still playing within the game, within the team, within the system, but taking his chances when they're here, like when he hit the post and stuff like that. With Chiesa, I just worry, and that could be because of his limited minutes, that he almost like over tries and does not still play within the system, which is probably something that the manager looks at. But it's on the manager at the end of the day, because he's playing like that because he only played like 20 something minutes.
Well, I mean, if you give a guy 8 minutes and you bring him on, trailing by 2 goals in a League Cup final, and you give him the last 10 minutes of the match, or you do the same thing to him in this Fulham match, to me, he's looked his best when he's been able to play without Mo. That's another thing that no one wants to talk about. He's looked his best when he's been on the right and he's been attacking fullbacks. That's what he does. He takes on players. He drives at players. He does the things that a lot of modern day footballers don't like to do anymore. He likes to play 1v1. He likes to create. He likes to get to the byline. He likes to cut the ball back. I think putting him in the middle and playing him off a striker down a goal when everyone is just helter-skelter. But the difference is, Nunez comes on and goes guns blazing. Chiesa comes on and actually got 4 shots off, 3 on target. He had more shots in the second half than Mo Salah. I know he did it in 3 minutes, but he did do it. And at the end of that match, if you asked me who was going to give us the best chance to score, I probably felt the most comfortable those few times the ball fell to Chiesa. Granted, he took that one with his right foot or his left foot instead of his right.
He did it with the outside of the foot. It was like a weird shot.
I didn't love the outside of the foot shot, but he has the ability to change things up.
Yeah, see, I don't know. Like we were talking about that with the Prince this morning, and my thing with that is when Mo does that, where he like sometimes like takes shots that we're like, man, there's a guy open on the left hand side, or what, you know what I mean? Like we harp on him more, but I know he's in there, and he might, Chiesa wants to make an impact and wants to get that moment and score the tying goal and stuff like that. I mean, I think we just don't have a sample size big enough. But it just feels like if we're not seeing it, despite this poor form, Bickler, there has to be, we're assuming almost like he must be, slapping like Slot at practice or something like that. I mean, he has to be doing something that is not earning him, like almost like tying him away from minutes when all these other guys are really out of form and they're not scoring. If he doesn't get minutes now, like when the hell would he get minutes?
Well, I mean, this could be exactly what Gally was talking about. Like, so maybe he's doing something in training that is basically not like fitting what the manager wants out of him in that role. And so maybe that's why he's not getting this. Or it could be that he's doing exactly what is required of the role. It just happens to be in the same role that Mo Salah is playing in. So, I mean, it's very like – I agree with Gary. I mean, we watched a player who was the best player on planet Earth during the Euros play the same position Mo was playing when he was with Italy. Yeah. He absolutely shredded that entire tournament. And, like, I think it's very possible that maybe he is just in a role and excels in this role, and it just happens to be a role behind the player that we build everything around and who doesn't leave the pitch.
Which brings us back to, and they were, like, obviously reports today from David – is it Ornstein? Either way.
Ornstein.
Like his report saying both Van Dijk and Mo are more of like a, not an if, but more of a when in terms of like when they sign the extension. You're not going to kind of like take a risk on this, but you are. Is that maybe the future, or is that something that, once you get him signed and extended and stuff like that, you're like, hey man, we just signed you to all this money. We need you to be around for the next 2-3 years for this contract time. So you are going to start, coming off at 60, 70 and stuff like that. We got to control your minutes.
I think it's on the manager. I think it's his number one job. I genuinely do. I think he has to turn this side. He has to figure out how to put – he said, give me a full season, right? Let me play with – I'll use this squad. We're going to assess everyone. He's made some really poignant comments about a big summer coming. He expects there to be lots of incomings and outgoings. And I think he knows this side needs a refreshing. But I think he also knows that as time goes on, it's going to become his side. And I genuinely don't believe in my heart Arne Slot wants to build this side around his right back or his right wing. And I think at Feyenoord, it was built around a strong midfield. We're seeing what he likes out of his midfield. And it was built around a true point central striker that scored the goals, and everyone else worked for that striker, a lot like City does for Holland. And that's why I know there's mixed emotions, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm condoning the actions or anything, but I wasn't on that bus, so I don't know everything. But I think there is some smoke to the Julian Alvarez, because Julian Alvarez looks to me like the type of central forward that Arne Slot would want and would thrive in his system. And I think if you put some young players around a central player like Alvarez or an Isak or a Jokeres even, I think those are the type of players that I think we probably target. And I think it's as important they sign a player like that as it is that they re-sign Mo
But it's
Salah.
very different, isn't it? Like, the players you name in terms of style, and this goes back to us not really knowing what he has in mind in terms of that center forward. Because, I mean, Alvarez is a totally different dude compared to Isak, for example. It's more like
He,
a younger, what I mean? Like better, like
if you've watched,
stuff like that.
but if you've watched a lot of, if you've watched any, and it's a brutal watch at times, but he's been a
Yes, it
different
is.
player at Atletico Madrid and for Argentina than he was for City. I think at City he played the Kevin De Bruyne style role because he wanted minutes and he knew he had to coexist
Yeah, he
and
was more
play.
1B kind of a deal.
Yeah, I think he knows. I think he can be a central, force, and you can build it around. I understand they're different players, but I understand where they're coming from. To me, we're going to buy 3 players here and rebuild the entire front line, which is why I see a player, and I know I mentioned him earlier, a kid like Antoine Semenyo that could literally walk in and probably be our best backup at all 3 attacking positions,
Yeah.
right, left, and center. And I actually think Semenyo, for this system, if Mo stayed, might actually be best playing through the center as a number 9 in that Alvarez type floating role. I think it's players like that I think he builds around. And I think we're going to see an influx of young 20 to 25-year-old talent. And I think that's where they're going to invest the money. And I don't think it's going to be all the big names we keep throwing out there and the media keeps throwing out there. I think they're going to be signings he would have signed at Feyenoord. And I think there's a reason the guy is like, I've never lost 2 consecutive matches as a head coach. That's a pretty ridiculous feat. And he's still on that trajectory. So it'll be interesting to see what he does next match if he can keep that moving.
Mitur says, which I do apologize because of the overlap. I know we are kind of lowering the college men's basketball final ratings, but the good news for them is we're going to be done in 15 minutes, so they'll get the ratings back. Florida or Houston, says Mitush. Bickler, I know you got more than something writing on this. I guarantee it's right.
Well,
Don't say you
yeah. I
don't
mean,
know.
I'm only here just to put a dent in the CBS's ratings because I do have money on this. I think, first of all, I think this is going to be a phenomenal game. I think it's going to be a relatively low scoring. Both teams play great defenses. It's going to be an awesome physical game. I have Houston, but I think it's going to be super close. It could really go either way.
Gally, you're over there. I mean, is there any peer
I
pressure?
am in Florida. I am in Florida, which probably means Houston will win. But I got a buddy, and I'm not even kidding about this. I have a buddy who made a $10 futures bet, picked like 8 different scenarios, including like 4 division winners in the NFL, the Dodgers to win last year's World Series, and he has Houston to win the Final Four. And his $10 parlay pays out over 15,000, and all they need is a win tonight. No points involved.
That's
So
So
he
I'm
got everything
definitely
else right already?
he got everything else right. And they didn't offer an early cash out until yesterday. And he decided not to take it. He's got some money, and he really wants to gamble. But he hedged his bet. He laid a heavy straight bet on Florida. So even if they win, he's getting some of it back. But he has a serious move there. So I give him credit. I always do those, I was notorious when I used to bet on sports, and I used to bet pretty heavily, well, when it was a very illegal activity in the late 90s, when I was in college. And I was notorious, like, They used to call me the Prince of Parlays because I would get like 6 out of 7. They would call me all the time and they would say like no one gets more statistical bets right and paid out less than I would because the parlay is just like the sucker's bet. But he admitted he was drunk and he was in Vegas and he was like screw it and he just started rambling shit off. And it started with the Dodgers winning the World Series, but he had a couple of random ones too, like this team will make the playoffs in the NFL. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I think Houston hasn't lost a road match since the second game of the season. Pretty insane.
That's why
there was no
that he didn't cash out and he really likes to gamble. Bickler is like, yeah, Bickler was feeling that.
Yeah, degenerate. That's what you don't have.
How much weight do you put to the when, not if, conversation for Van Dyke and Mo that came out today? Actually, I mean, it is a reliable source, but are you buying it? I've been selling.
I think that's how we've all been feeling for a number of months now, right? We talked about both the things Mo and Virgil van Dijk were saying to the media, in a lot of the things that they had been doing seemed to sort of suggest that they would be re-signing. And I think we all felt very strongly that Trent looked checked out and like he was already gone. So I think this is playing out pretty closely to how we thought it would so far.
I think we're going to be surprised that when they re-sign, that the numbers come out that look, and people are going to be like, oh, Gally always defending the owners. I think it's going to look like the club won this negotiation. Because I think, honestly, and it's getting leaked out there, like even Van Dyke yesterday, that's what makes me have confidence. It's not Ornstein's comments. It's Van Dyke saying there's been positive movement. You don't make that comment if one of two things. One, there hasn't really been some positive movement. Or two, you need it to be perceived as there being positive movement so that the club will. So when you acquiesce and take the club's offer at the end of the day, I think this, and I've said this before, I might be in the minority. I don't think there is an enormous market anywhere else to pay them what these guys want to make. And they're worth more to Liverpool than they're worth to any other club. I think PSG said, yeah, we got a better version of this in Dembele right now. We don't want to sign you. Like, I'm dead serious. I don't think Bayern Munich has any interest in bringing in Van Dijk and paying him $350,000 a week. I don't think Barcelona, Madrid, I think they want to sign the kid from Bournemouth. I don't think they want to sign.
Yeah, I think Van Dijk would have a market. I mean, most market would be different. I think he would go to Saudi Arabia if he wants after the wages. I think he can always go there. But we've talked about this before. That's something that's
he's not ready for that.
But I think Van Dijk makes more at Liverpool than he does moving anywhere else because whoever's going to be interested is going to be in like Serie A or somebody like that, and they're not going to meet those wages.
And neither of these guys are going to play.
Kind of deal though, that would get him paid more. You guys think?
But I think Trent's a kid. I think Real Madrid is buying Trent's advertising dollars. They're buying that they're going to put that pretty young man up on billboards in the United States, and he's going to go to LA. Like, I think Trent is taking less money to go to Madrid, to be honest. I think when we find that out too, I think Trent's offer that they claim was $325,000 a week for 6 years will dwarf what Madrid is paying him, including the sign-on bonus. To me, this is more about Trent wanting. This feels a lot like when Gretzky left Edmonton and went to LA and literally was going so his wife could become a Hollywood actress and a bigger star. And I think this feels like Shaq leaving the Orlando Magic and not needing to make any more money, but wanting to be in LA. Like, I think Trent is going for non-football reasons as much as he's.
I do. I feel that too. It feels like Trent wants to go sit in the sunshine and hang out with Drake. Like,
I think so. Which to me really makes it look a lot worse.
He used to say he wanted to be a Liverpool legend and be the captain of the club. And within 6 months, that became, I want to be a world star. And then people say, you want to be a football star? And he's like, I just want to be a star. It feels like Beckham at United. I think Trent believes his admirations are bigger than Liverpool Football Club. And I think if Van Dijk had that feeling, it would have happened a contract ago when he was still 29 years old and he had the opportunity. He's 35. Like Real Madrid is trying to get Rudiger out of the club on those wages, and he's still a great footballer at the highest level. They're playing an academy kid, and they want the young kid from Bournemouth because I think they see the next. There is going to be a turnover, and I think we're seeing it with City. I'll say this. It would be sad if they were to leave. If they get replaced, like what we're watching at City right now is what happens when you have 2 or 3 bad transfer windows and you don't strengthen an aging side, and then guys get old overnight and get hurt. And I think that City side is in like a world of pain. Like I genuinely think they missed top 5. I think they may finish outside of the top 5. I think Newcastle's stronger right now. I think Villa's playing the best football of anyone in England. I think that we have to be careful. I think the 2-year bumpers are great deals. Both players have to acknowledge it, and I think the club is doing it on purpose, leaving it late, because I think they're making sure they know that this will no longer – they won't be penciled in guaranteed starters, and we're not building the next 3-4 windows around them. And, their time is here. They're going to bridge us to the next Liverpool side. I don't think they're going to lead this Liverpool.
I think it just buys you time. I mean, they're not. I mean, at that age, you better not be hoping that at 40 years they're going to be leading it. But I think it buys you more time to address those, because you have so many different areas that you have to address already. It just buys you a couple more years
100%.
to address those spots, because you have the world's, 2 of the world's best still in those. So you can go get a left back and stuff this summer. Excuse me, and then worry about the rest afterwards. Brian says, yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about Trent, and we'll probably, excuse me, once it becomes official, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about more. Brian says, Gally, are you still dodging Strongman over Best? That's why he's in an undisclosed location right now. We don't know where he's at. But Bickler, lineup against West Ham. People are clamoring for change. I'm thinking aside from Ali and Bradley walking into the 11, I think we tried out the same. What say you?
I think we're going to see Diaz on the left. I hope we don't start Jota, but probably will. I think Bradley, Ali, Diaz are going to be your changes. I think the rest is the same.
Do you think he does Diaz in the middle, or we stay away from that?
No, I think he does. I think he does Diaz on the left, and I think Gakpo comes off the bench.
How about you, Gally?
I think he's going to make some. I think he'll make some changes. I do. I don't think he's going to. I don't know that he'll roll out that exact same midfield again. I know that they get a full week of rest in between. I think Jones has put in good shifts. I think it was clear the fact that Jones stayed on the pitch twice after they made substitutions from the right back, and he pushed him forward. He still sees Jones as a big part of the midfield. I can see Jones starting. We make fun of the guy a lot, but he's going to play Costas a few times down the stretch here from the start, because if you keep rolling Andy Robertson out there, you make that face. Robertson had a month and a half of good football this entire season, and everyone was like,
that's not bad. I think Costas is. I would still have Robertson being field out there than Costas starting is where I'm at.
Tim would have Robbo out there in a wheelbarrow before.
That's what I get it. With the wheelbarrow. I get it, but I'll tell you this right now, and Andy Robertson was terrible defensively. Andy Robertson made 3 of the worst decisions in the second half in the final third. He had the greatest opportunity to level the game, and he once again couldn't put it on target from inside the 18-yard box after making a great run.
And I think we were talking about it this morning. Defensively, the loss of Trent leaving, is going to become more trouble for Robertson. If anybody wants Trent to resign, it's probably Robo, because now the teams are going to be like, okay, I guess we don't have to necessarily go left every time. Why don't we attack this guy instead, kind of a deal? And I think you're going to see more teams.
I feel bad. Right. I think he's being targeted now by Premier League sides, like they used to target Trent.
Yeah.
And I actually feel bad.
People better have Trent stay, but Sucks to be him. He's not.
And I do, but I feel bad for him because I think he's asked to play too often. I think that's why it's almost expediting the need for a player like Kirkez. And I think that's why you're even hearing the links stronger. And, I know there was someone, maybe it was Jamie, who was saying, the quotes that he had from January where he said he was never coming to Liverpool. He basically said, I'm not transferring this January. And then when specifically asked about Liverpool, he said, no, Liverpool, not ever. He meant this month because he's backtracked him already and said, oh, I'm open to transfers and Liverpool's a great club. Soboslai tells me all about it. Like, I think that one to me feels almost like, and I said this, I think, to Paul, maybe when you were off one of the weeks, it feels a little bit like the McAllister, like almost like the hidden transfer that's already done and everybody kind of knows. And that's why there's like the links and rumors.
Really? Because I feel the other way. I feel like we've been talking about it too much. It's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, we've had some players that were like, it's pretty much done. And then it was like, no, it wasn't.
I think there are those. But I think there's a little bit of smoke, there's fire. I think the fact that the sporting director here is the guy who scouted him and signed him makes it easier. I think the fact that we already have good inner working, like the framework of deals in the past. And I think the Kelleher thing is real. I think the sides that are interested in Kelleher are the Bournemouths of the world, are the West Hams of the world. And if I were them, I would be sweetening that pot. And I would be looking at it under those pretenses. That's where I'd be looking at it. And I think that one, I think you could hear about that one.
So you're saying Kirk has in cash for Kelleher, right?
Oh, I mean, probably
don't open 50. That door. Don't open that door.
I'm purposely sparing the pot. I'm sorry.
Tim, will you admit he wasn't good on the weekend?
Who?
Because Kelleher, and it wasn't his fault. He was weak on the third goal. I don't care what anyone says.
The third goal,
his distribution.
The other ones, I don't know. I would have put it on him on the other ones. I mean, I just don't want to, right at the end of the podcast, open up like a 15-minute, 20-minute.
Oh, no, I'm just – but once again, you can't criticize a player who's a fan favorite, but you can bag on – but people can bag on – like, people bag on Darwin. They bag on –
I don't think he's a fan favorite. I think he's an Irish favorite.
Well, I think he's just overrated. I don't think it's because he's Irish. That's our internal joke in Discord. I think as Liverpool supporters, we have overrated a player. I remember third best keeper in the world talk.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. But that was like we called it out as being stupid. That, like I said, I don't want to get into the Kelleher conversation. I'm sure we'll get it when it's like room, because I mean he is going to be on the move, and I think that by itself will kind of end that conversation because we'll see the price tag, and that will automatically answer that question in terms of like where he ranks. Because if he was the third, we'd be getting a lot more for it. Is what we're probably gonna end up saying. Before we leave, early score predictions: Bickler against West Ham, home. Everybody rested.
I see we go back and let's do 2-0 slot special back on the rails.
Galley.
Yeah, well, I'm not going the clean sheet because I just predicted that Costas will probably start and Jared Bowen plays on the right. I'm going to say it's nervy and ugly, but we score the goals we need. Let's go 4-2. Doesn't feel that comfortable.
I'm the optimist today. I'm going with a 4-1. Not even the emotion special. Another one. 4-1. Is what I'm going with. But yeah, it is kind of hard these days which says a lot, right? I mean, we kind of kept, I know Bickler selected it, but we always went with the slot special of 2-0. It's kind of hard to pick clean sheets these days because it just feels
I'll give you the big one, though. I think Kanate comes back, puts in this is what he does. He gives you a performance that makes you be like, he's never going to be worth it. And then you start hearing that his people want $200,000 a week. And then he comes out, and tomorrow he'll cover for Bradley. He'll ping a couple balls forward. He'll win every aerial duel against Fulcrum, right? Like this could be, I think Kanate comes back and puts in that beast man mountain type performance, because West Ham's the type of team you expect him to show up and play big and strong because that's the way that they play.
And people who are saying he's not in a thing, he'll be pay that man after that game. So he'll
Brian Shelton will be ready to give him $200,000.
Brian is not paying 200. Dave says who's scoring the goal. Don't worry about that, Dave. We got you. It'll be 4-1. You can just bet on it. I really think like Mo comes back. Actually, we do start to see some action from Mo. I don't know. I think a full week's rest and everything, and being back home again, and the fact that it's West Ham, which I know they frustrated the hell out of Arsenal, but that was Arsenal as well. But you can take this to the bank, and I think you were taking Houston to the bank. Is that what we're doing, Vickler? Is that where the money is? Is that where the real money is?
That's where my money is, which is probably means where yours shouldn't be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, Brian, man, a lot of betting action going on over here. But hey, that's it for us this week. Hopefully, we will be talking about next Monday after a win and not selling everybody like everybody else is. But I will be back tomorrow with the panel show tomorrow night. That should be an interesting take. I know a lot of the battles. I mean, the relegation battle is already over, but probably top 5 is what we're going to be talking about a lot moving forward into the season. As long as we win some games and seal the title conversation, but that will come soon. West Ham, then away to Leicester City. Those should be 6 points. But go enjoy the game. Give CBS some ratings. I do apologize to the CBS ownership that we took some away. We'll send everybody back over to the game over here, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.